Hello, everybody. Welcome to the media show. I'm Nick Pallavito. I'm going to be your host for today. We're going to talk about banned books, but we're also going to talk about other things that are involved in the media, including some of the issues relating to how education is taught, especially in the great state of Florida, where apparently there's some curriculum that's showing how slavery is such a wonderful thing, such as it provides job skills. I'm wondering about free room and board, et cetera. And that's being done right now in the great state of Florida, which is quite interesting. Now, with that, we're going to California and see what their opinion is about this area. First of all, we're bringing an author, actually wrote a book that, to my knowledge, is not banned, but maybe should be. It's called Chess for Dummies. And with that, we're going to bring in the dummy himself, Jim Eade.
Hi,
Jim, well, welcome to the media show. I hope your book is not banned. It doesn't show the Chess for Dummies, but I saw your book at Barnes & Noble the other day.
Oh, yeah. Good for you. Good for me,
but
too.
Your book wasn't banned yet.
No, I don't expect it to be banned, but, I didn't go into history.
Oh, right. That's
history.
True. Yeah. The chess books haven't been banned yet. With that, we're going to bring somebody who's a writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live and also a member of the Mega Society, which no one knows what that is. And that's Rick Rosner. Rick Rosner, welcome to the show. We'll talk about banned books. We're also going to talk about your friend Ron DeSantis down in Florida and some of his interesting progressive ideas. With that, also somebody who's progressive, we're going to bring in the founder of the Pod TV network, Kim Calhoun, coming in from the Raleigh-Durham area. And I'm sure behind you have some books that are also banned that we're going to discuss. And then
my book's banned.
all these books are banned. A presidential candidate who doesn't have to deal with these issues, at least right now, Lee Newton Rhodes. Lee, we're going to have to get your thoughts on banned books and also your thoughts on one of your potential political opponents, Ron DeSantis, who apparently, I don't know how they do this. They're telling, and I'll start with you, Lee, because this boggles my mind. They're telling people in education how to teach, what to teach, okay? And I never had a political entity when I was teaching at Northeastern University's graduate tax program come to me and tell me how I'm supposed to teach graduate tax. Now, apparently in the great state of Florida, they're telling the teachers that when it comes to slavery, you have to teach, look at all the great skills that you got when you're a slave. You learn to become a blacksmith. I mean, you got free room and board and all this other stuff. So what are your thoughts, and I'm going to pick on you, Lee, about your opponent, Ron DeSantis, saying, hey, we're going to teach everybody about the benefits of slavery. Look at it, free room and board, job skills you learn.
I don't have so much, but if some of this is true, obviously, because they did do technical things. The Jews in Egypt, they did technical things, whether in Nazi Germany, but it's taking so much out of perspective in terms of the burden and what they were going through at the times. Am I wrong?
So my relatives enslaved in Egypt 2,500 years ago, definitely they benefited. They had falafel Fridays when they were working on the pyramids. So, and they also developed accounting skills, doing the math of moving those big blocks around.
Okay, I just find it's interesting. Not only all the benefits that they're describing, it's like you could write a book, The Benefits of Slavery, free room and board. Look at
it sort of boggles my mind that we're even having this discussion.
Yeah, Democrats have this. The Democrats have a strategy, which I don't know. As a Democrat, I'm often annoyed by, which is just lay back and let the Republicans be Republicans, which maybe in this case is a good strategy because DeSantis in January was the preferred candidate of 40.5% of Republican voters. Now he's down to 15.5%. He lost almost 2/3 of his support. With Trump, whatever Trump does, 40% of Americans continue to love him. With DeSantis, the more we see of him, the less we like him.
Rick, why is that? Because as a governor, he appears to have done a decent job up until now.
He's not physically imposing. He's awkward with people. He does this there's the deal with what's his name who rode in a tank and then
Mike Dukakis.
Yeah, Dukakis. As soon as Dukakis looked kind of schmucky in a tank, that cost
He
him
was dead.
the election. And DeSantis ends up his laugh kind of strikes people as artificial, and just people aren't buying it.
He's not stupid though. He's just, I guess, not a people person.
I think he went to Harvard or Yale Law
Yeah,
School.
yeah.
I believe so. Also.
Both, I think, didn't he?
He's
One
very highly
undergrad and then the other
educated.
grad or something.
Right. Yeah. So he's not a stupid person, but the thing is, it's just he apparently doesn't rub people the right way. But then when you look at Trump, and this thing that also just boggles my mind, here you got a guy that has baggage a mile long, yet people are supporting him.
Do you know why, Nick? Though, did you see the video clip of what's the guy's name? It came out, when Trump was running, saying, "Why are people supporting him?" It's basically a big F you to the establishment.
True. That was in 2016. I think that was very true.
Yes.
But Jim and Lee, hasn't that been going on for a while? Because if you look at some of the most successful candidates,
No.
I mean, Obama was not an establishment candidate, no matter what people think. He was a community activist. Carter was a peanut farmer. There were a
Right.
number of
But they
others
weren't
that were
calling out the
not in
establishment
that
either.
space. So they were definitely, I think there's been a trend for the folks that are going against the establishment to be very successful, whether they are Democrats or Republicans.
Well,
So I
Trump
definitely
ran on draining the swamp. Unfortunately, he made it much swampier. And, it turns
Failed
out that,
miserably with that.
well, it was pretty swampy to begin with, so it's a matter of degree, but it was certainly, he made things worse. And if you voted for him in 2016, I have some understanding of your perspective. You throw the bums out is my lifelong strategy. But I do think that once you've seen him in action, you can't pretend you didn't see it. So, what we saw was 4 years of division, 4 years of inciting hate, 4 years of really profiting off of the presidency. Let's come on. And, these are all things that we saw. And of course, he's under indictment now, and he's going to be continuing legal problems into the near future without any sense that things are going to get better for him legally. So, we know now. So if you supported him in 2020, I don't understand your reasoning. And if you support him in 2024, forget it. I don't want to have a conversation with you.
I agree with what
Jim,
you're saying,
along
but
those same
in fairness,
lines,
you had to hate
hold on
on
a
the
second.
other side also. They wanted to impeach him before he was in office.
Pardon me? I'm sorry, Lee. I didn't hear.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but there was a lot of hate on the other side also, in terms of making up conspiracies with the Russian hoax, in terms of the Hunter Biden laptop being false, in terms of they wanted to impeach him before he was even inaugurated.
In terms of Trump?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, I think I see that in terms of Biden.
I wanted to impeach him before they inaugurated him.
Yeah, well, what gets me such a divisive person.
He's very divisive.
I don't know
Yes.
why the Republicans continue to back a person that has that much baggage, and perhaps is their only chance of losing the White House. The only chance of losing I can see the Republicans doing is to bring Trump in front. Have they put that calculus together? That anybody on the Republican Party could probably beat Biden except Trump.
I don't agree with that.
They're
I
backing Trump.
think if you run DeSantis, he's a loser.
Okay, well,
Just
okay.
one.
Yeah, DeSantis is a mini Trump. So you get rid of DeSantis, get rid of Trump, and I think any other candidates would win. Yeah.
I don't agree. I do
Just
think
curious
if you ran
why we
something like
can't
Governor-
find
oh,
anybody
sorry.
better. I'm sorry, Jim.
No,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, please repeat.
But I agree with Jim on many points, but I am so tired of the same old, same old. Can we not? I mean, is this the best humans can do? Really? Come on, people.
Yeah.
Where are
It's
the
not-
aliens? My God, I am waiting
It's-
for the aliens to invade
No.
the earth and fix us.
Are we really going to suffer
So-
Biden and Trump running again? An
Is-
old
looks
man,
like
it.
an old man that anybody can beat.
Sorry,
Anybody.
Jim.
So, in all honesty, we are.
Any Republican can beat him, with perhaps the exception
I-
of Trump and maybe DeSantis.
No, I
But
disagree.
they're not
That,
gonna-
I
they're gonna
totally
run the wrong
disagree.
person.
so, Nick, the problem that I can see with the Republican Party, if they do not have Trump as their head, you're going to split the Republican Party completely, because right now Trump is sitting at 50 some odd %. Everybody else is like 30, 40 points behind. So you're not going to have anybody else but Trump in there. To answer Kim's question, no, Biden isn't the best of the Democrats and Trump is not the best of the Republicans. What ends up happening,
what the Democrats are doing is they're destroying all their young people by pushing Biden's agenda. And pushing
that's
4
years goes by in a flash.
Show me. Come on, Jatovi.
4 years
There's
goes by in a
tons of young
flash, Nick.
people that can take this old man's position, and they're
It's
not
not-
letting him go up. It was like when Hillary Clinton, they pushed everybody aside. Hillary's going to be our nominee.
Well,
So
Nick,
no,
let me tell you
that's-
who would win in the Republicans.
Give me somebody who's got some
If they would nominate
youth
Governor
and
Sununu
enthusiasm.
from New Hampshire, that's a real Republican. But he has no chance. He would lose in the primaries. And he knows it, so he doesn't even run. Yet that guy is the kind of Republican that a guy like me would consider voting for. But, he has no chance in this environment. So you're only going to support losers. These guys aren't going to win a national election until they lose enough that they change and they start thinking, oh, yeah, guys like Governor Sununu really are conservatives in the way conservatives was meant to be. And we're going to start nominating them again. Then the Republican Party will bounce back.
That Republican Party is stuck right now behind Trump. And that's why every Republican, and that's why Sununu has no shot. That's why Christie has no shot. That's why the what's his name? He's also running the one of the only the only black Republican in the Senate.
Scott.
Scott.
They have no shot.
Last name
because the way that Republican Party is built, the way the Republican Party is right now, everybody wants to out Trump. They want to cater to that MAGA base because that is the base of the party. So what you got?
I think people are just lazy.
If for whatever reason Trump would drop out, either willingly or whatever, he would not be part of the picture. What would the Republican Party need to do to get his supporters to stay in the party?
And that's what they're doing. They're trying to out Trump. DeSantis is running to the right of Trump. DeSantis, everything that he's doing is antithetical to what the Republican Party says they are about, but that's to the right of Trump.
But he comes across as a phony when he does it.
Yeah. Everything that Ramaswamy is talking about. Well, I'm going to pardon Trump. So that's what he's trying to do to galvanize and grab that MAGA base.
And Nikki Haley also said she'd pardon him.
Yeah,
and Nikki
and
Haley
that
is
is what
actually
they're
somebody
doing.
that I had a modicum of respect for.
They have no platform besides we want the MAGA base. So what they're doing is, hey, we're going to out Trump. Trump says he was going to build the wall. Guess what? I'm going to actually build the wall and do what Governor Abbott is doing, pushing kids into rivers and drowning kids and causing injury.
Wire in the rivers.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Greg Abbott is right. Oh, well, Trump said that he's against gay people. So you know what? I'm going to run an ad that shows me as a macho man and even puts in Christian Bale's character, who was actually a murderer. Who cares? But he's a manly man. That's what they're doing. That's the whole Republican Party right now. And that's
Republican
the problem.
Parties have drank way too much Kool-Aid and have actually just drowned themselves in their own misery and sorrow to see who can one up the other. I am disappointed in the Republican Party. Everybody accuses me of being a Democrat, and I was actually raised and grew up a Republican. I actually grew up a human. My parents tried to teach me to isolate the people and pick for the right person and vote for the right person. But honestly, can we not just put age limits and make these people take tests to prove that they're even brain capable of running a country? And not just brain capable, but empathy wise, I think there needs to be a test. I think we need to test these people to make sure they understand who our country is, that they are for our country, that they know math, they know finance, that they don't file bankruptcy every time they poop because they can't do anything better. And I think that we need to get them upgraded a little bit, and I think we need to put it. You know what, guys? Please don't take me wrong here, but I'm going to hurt myself too. I think we need to put an age limit. Nobody over 70. I think it needs to stop at 70. Our presidential leaders need to become younger, stronger, and smarter. And I
Is
think
that universal? All politicians in Congress and also Supreme Court?
everybody needs to take a test. Everybody.
But I don't know how you get people to agree to that. Nobody likes to take tests after they're done taking the SAT.
Rick,
In
who makes the test? Who's doing
2020,
them?
tens of millions of Biden voters weren't voting for Biden as much as they were voting against Trump. And it's going to
100%.
be the same thing again in 2024. But in terms of being able to tell what people think, it's becoming harder and harder because polls are currently a mess and they're not going to get better. It used to be that that a lot of people, a third of people would agree to take a political poll if they got a phone call. Now it's one person in 500, which means the one person who says yes might be a crazy person. So you can't go by polls anymore.
Yeah, it's a great.
I think that's another test we need to do is an insanity test before we allow anyone to run for office.
But
Well,
you can't get the people in office.
Well, that would cover pretty much covered by.
I'm sorry, Kim. That's like a rhetorical question. That's the only people you get to run.
So I think the bigger problem than even tests or whatever, because tests that's not going to change anything. The problem is we need a more educated electorate, and one that is not against education, and we need to focus on that and focus on having a true press and not one that's split down the middle sometimes. Well, the one that gets marketed the most, because the problem that we run into, we can have a young person in there, but then you still can have a young crazy person in there. It's a matter that we need, and they can even pass that cognitive ability test. But the problem is that who we're voting for. For example, Marjorie Taylor Greene should not be in Congress.
Oh,
But that's your opinion. A lot of people
No.
like her.
She should
But that's
not
your
be in
opinion.
Congress.
That's not millions of opinions.
But
That's
again,
yours. I don't like her either, but
what I'm saying is she should not be based on what we claim to be. Her anti-Semitic ways, her racist tropes that she pushes out.
Lasers disqualify you. Come on.
So again, it's the electorate that put her in there. Not she would have passed whatever test that you're asking for.
Joe,
She
you
could
can
have
think
passed
about any candidate.
again, but again,
Yeah, if you gerrymander your district enough, you're gonna get anybody that anybody
But
that
they
you
can't
want
even-
to put up there is gonna win. So that there's a lot of problems here, but we got off the track of what's wrong with claiming that slavery is good for people. What's wrong with banning books? Can we get back to those types of discussions? Because we have a politician who's running for president, who's getting it.
James?
He's posting above 10%, anyways, and he's advocating this stuff.
Yep.
And we're not shocked. We're not just appalled.
I am completely appalled.
I just got a question. When we say banning books, what do we mean by that? Because clearly not all books are appropriate for K through 3, for example.
Lee.
Is that considered banning?
Lee, do you believe that the story of Rosa Parks should be banned?
I didn't read the book, so I can't answer the question. But in theory, I would say no.
So no, Lee.
Her story should be told.
Lee,
But I didn't read the book.
if her story should be told, the problem is that you have individuals like Ron DeSantis who believes that this is making white children feel uncomfortable and
You're
feel
telling
like
me
they're
that Ron DeSantis said, and maybe he did, I don't know, that people should not be made aware that there's this lady called Rosa Parks and what happened to her.
But then on top of that, think about it.
That's what you're saying?
For example, if I believe I believe that a book is bad and it shouldn't be for my child, should I have the ability to say, Lee, your kids can't read it too?
No, typically when I grew up,
Toby, I don't think anyone's saying that. They're just saying
That is what they're
in the
saying.
school library. No,
No,
you
no,
can
no.
take it out of
No, no,
whatever
no,
library
no, no,
you
no.
can buy the books personally.
No, Lee. You got it wrong. What we're saying, when I grew up, there were people that were in charge of deciding what was appropriate for children to learn at certain grade levels.
It's part of the
And
curriculum.
now we don't have that anymore. What we have are parents getting up and saying in their community and saying, I don't want this book because it features two women as a mother. And so we've got to get it out. And there's a politician supporting them. And now this wave, which is not coming from the academic people who are educators, who are thinking like what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate,
right?
What would be good for them, what is essential for them to learn about their, these are the people who are trained, who have been trained to make.
No, I get that. But
now we've given that
voice.
power up to people who don't know what they're talking about and have an agenda.
James, I get that, but your parents have a voice.
Not in that. I should not be able to tell you what you can and cannot read based on my kids.
Toby, so using that logic, I get that.
Here's the point.
Tom Sawyer, if you consider that racist, it's been part of
Lee,
the schools for years.
I think you missed exactly what Jim said. There are academics that are doing this.
And
that
Mark Twain has been in.
Let's say you're in a part of that.
But hold on, Lee.
That book is part of the curriculum, and you don't
And it
like
should be.
Lee.
At a certain age, it should be. And it will
Lee,
be.
What Jim is saying is that
unless these Christian people have their say.
there are trained people doing this. You have untrained people who have opinions.
Right.
First
that
of all,
have no
to say they're
clue
all
what the book
untrained, I
is.
think, is disingenuous. Some of them may be trained, but they're just
No, they're not. No, they're not.
No,
The people
but as
that
a group,
banned
they're not
the book
trained.
on
As a group,
Rosa
they are.
Parks felt that it was woke. The people that banned the book on the two penguins had never read the
where
book.
everyone goes to die, not just woke.
All right.
Yeah.
Book banning is another conservative wedge issue that mobilizes a loud minority. Since 1988, the Republicans have won the popular vote in just one presidential election because most of their policies aren't supported by a majority of the American people.
So I want to add something where people bring up, don't I have a right as a parent to decide what my child learns? And, I have to say that we have to be a little bit ethical and have some integrity when we pick books for our children to read as they grow and learn and expand their minds to what the world and what exists in the world. But you know what, when we're talking about all of this and about the presidential and who has rights over us, you know what, let's go back in history just a little bit. Let's go back to when our country was founded by Christopher Columbus.
Oops.
Has anyone ever read his journals?
We've seen
It wasn't
excerpts. He
founded
wasn't
by
a good
I
guy. He
have
was
not.
a bad guy. He
So,
got
I mean,
fired for being a bad guy.
He landed at the wrong place.
The purposes of starting this country, and I always said it, the people who left Europe, they were criminals. They didn't want to live by the rules there. And again, I'm going to ask everyone, Christians, come on, you guys have done nothing but hurt people with using the words of the Bible majority of the time. You use fear, you use, and God is, from what I know of God, that's not fear. But let's talk about this, from the day one that this country was founded by Christopher Columbus, it was to enslave the people and to make the people do what they want. And nothing has changed from the time that they brought over other people to, take over this country and do what they want to do. So the question is who's in charge, right?
So just to touch on
and
that.
that's what we have to start
Them ain't
controlling.
very
And there's millions of us. We need to control that.
Well, just to touch on that, and Jim, you're biting the tongue for the same reason I was. So we're going to leave that alone because that's a long another discussion. But to touch on, we'll make this simple and talking about who controls and so on and so forth. The academics decide what goes in the library. The parents decide on what their kids can check out. You, Lee, what you're asking is who decides what goes in that library. That's the problem. The academics are supposed to be there to decide that. Your child isn't the one that's forced to check out that book at all.
And
My
I agree
child
with what
thinks
you're saying in
check
theory,
that book
Toby.
out.
I agree.
So
We are
But let's
forced to.
say
Freedom.
there's
one at a
people are
time.
human.
One at a time, guys.
Something slipped through the cracks, and your child takes out a book, and you say, "What the hell was this book?"
But that's
doing in
your
the
child.
library?"
That's your child, your responsibility. That's not
But
mine.
what about
No,
when
I
teachers
disagree.
assign readings to Toby? What about when teachers and schools assign this is what your child has to read for book assignment? You're as a parent, you have no choice over those matters.
That's
And
a great
you know
point.
what? I am for reading everything and anything
Again,
you can to
but
learn
Kim,
everything and everything.
No teacher is assigning a 5-year-old a Playboy magazine to read. So
Too bad. They might learn
we have to
something.
be honest about what's being checked, what is actually being assigned, instead of saying, "Hey, well, the parent has no decision over that." Well, the teacher really isn't assigning a child something that is inappropriate for them.
Yeah.
But we don't
Many of
know
these-
in
Rick,
your
Never
world.
know, Toby.
Rick's got
In
a
your
hand
world,
up.
it may be okay, and in some other person's world, a book may not be okay.
But then
But
again,
wait a
It's
minute,
Kim,
Rick, Rick's had his
opinion.
hand
All
up.
All
so
of
far.
this
Go ahead,
is
Rick.
opinion.
Tim,
It's
let
all
Rick have to
opinion.
say.
All right.
It's
So
not
many of
logical.
the
Hold on a
of these
second. I think Rick
campaigns-
had something he wanted to say.
All right. Many of these campaigns, including Moms for Liberty, are AstroTurf campaigns, fake grassroots campaigns bankrolled by rich conservative organizations
I'm
to
gonna steal
create
that.
a fake grassroots movement to get into school boards and schools and take them over by people with right-wing agendas.
exactly.
And it's a strong. It's not even a strong minority in some cases. It's just a vocal minority. But you
Yeah.
know, the academics weren't perfect either. One of the things I was assigned to read when I was a child was Little Black Sambo. So you know, the academics have to grow and have to change with society. But that's where it is. That's where it belongs to be. Who's saying these books are appropriate or not? They have to be trained individuals. They have to be weighing the pros and cons.
Oh.
And they have to be saying what society is telling us, and in broad terms. And so academics can be counted on to do that, even though they aren't perfect, even though they will make mistakes. You know, parents have to guard what their children are reading. Certainly, there's no question about that. But they can't have a say in what other children are reading.
Yes.
James, so when they make those mistakes, parents are supposed to just sit there, like potted plants.
I'm sorry, Lee, say again.
When they do make mistakes, which you acknowledge they're human, they make mistakes.
Yeah.
Are parents supposed to sit there like potted plants?
No, what they do is
I
they work
think
the
so.
system, Lee. You work the system. You say to
That's
the
all I'm
academics
saying.
and the
No
people,
voice.
the principals, you go to the teachers, you go to a PTA conference, you pound the
That's all I'm
chest.
saying.
and you
Even
say-
more so.
Pardon me?
Even more so, Jim. Everything that you're saying, that's the way you change. That's the way you change things. But the problem is these parents that are wanting to change things and claiming and wanting to ban all these books aren't doing that.
No.
These parents are basing their whole opinions on the ideals of the Southern strategy and this whole conservative movement that is talking about woke, which they cannot define. They're trying to go against diversity, which they are upset about. So all these books that are banned, are you telling me that it is so bad that a kid reads about Ruby Bridges and how she had to deal with the racism and struggles of just going to school? It's bad for a kid today to read that, so we have to ban that book because this conservative organization feels that it's too woke for kids to read at that age. That's the problem that we have now. It's not the academics that are creating these issues. It's the fact that these conservative ideas that are coming through this whole notion
And
of
they're not even
wokeism.
conservative. I think it's a mistake to call them conservative. They're way to the right of conservative. We're talking about fascism.
Hey, Jim
Well,
and
Yeah.
Jacoby.
I don't think that's a
Jim
fair
and Jacoby.
statement because
Isn't
there have been
part-
some
hold on a
statements. I'm
Jim
sorry,
and-
Mark.
Jim and Jacoby and
Just a real quick point.
and Lee, isn't part of the problem that there is a notion of Cliff Note history, and that is what I think is going on. It is too problematic, and I've actually had folks in my family that are part of the education system as well as a number of friends. So I think that we get too caught up in the Cliff Note version, which is that we tell about the heroes of history and all.
Whoops,
Oh.
Mark, I lost your audio.
He might drop out. I think where he's going with the Cliff Notes of history, Mark, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, because your audio disappeared. But you're talking about only the goods, and creating these heroes, but ignoring the fact that there are some
Yeah,
negatives.
I agree. It's
at
called
these
cherry
things.
picking. That's unfair to everybody.
But the problem is, again, when you're saying that it's unfair about cherry picking, do you know what critical race theory was trying to do? Was trying to educate the whole picture about the problems. And that's what's being banned, is the fact that, for example, they want to ban information about redlining and how that's effective, or how that affected people today.
That
About
might
how
be
that's
part of critical race theory, and then if that's true, that part should definitely, history should be taught. I'm on board with you with that.
but
in
that's
terms of condemning people now for what their grandfathers may have done or not done,
but
I
that's
don't
not
think
what's
that's fair.
happening. That's
It
where
may
the
not-
conservative mantra
maybe it
is.
should not be happening, but some
No.
people feel it is.
But Lee, that's what I'm saying, is that it's not happening. Nobody is condemning today, the individuals today, for slavery that happened years back. What people
I
are
don't
trying
think
to
that's
do,
true. Maybe they're not
No.
supposed to, but I think some places they are.
Lee, what people are trying to do, like with critical race theory, with all these other things, they're trying to explain why there are problems today, and trying to get to the root of a lot of these problems, and asking for empathy and understanding so we can move forward in ways to help each other move forward. The messaging, on the other hand, that's where the problem is, because I keep bringing it up because that's all we are doing is that Southern strategy. In the 1950s and 60s, when the civil rights movement happened, what ended up happening is that those in the Democrat Party who started the Klan, started all this other stuff,
And they were all
moved
Democrats
away.
at that time.
They moved away from the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
So
Now
then
they're
you
all
had
Republicans.
the whole set of individuals that were
Sure.
out there, a whole voting bloc. So then Nixon came in and created this whole Southern strategy.
Yeah.
Nixon decided we're going to recruit these people based on this white replacement. These people are coming to take your jobs. These people are coming to attack you. You don't want black people living in
It's
your neighborhood.
fear-based. Rick, you got your hand up again.
Yeah,
Oh,
as Jacoby is saying, the book banning, trans grooming, as with all conservative culture war issues, they're designed to manufacture fear and outrage to get Republican voters to the polls.
Yep. Exactly. And sadly, that's the new Southern strategy now. If you look at everything that DeSantis is pushing forward, he's the number 2 candidate in there. What's he attacking? He's not attacking anything on the economy. He's not attacking anything that really would help people. What's he attacking? Cultural wars. If you look at
Disney.
Ramaswamy,
For crying out loud.
he's a businessman, blah, 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 blah. But then what is his big campaign stuff? Culture wars. If you look at every GOP individual right now, even in the Senate, in the House, because they're more vocal, all their stuff.
Jacoby just froze on me.
That's
Looks like we
just
have a freezing
the way
problem.
it is.
Second.
Yeah. Well,
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Kim.
I have a question. And each of you can answer one at a time. What would you change to implement the process to be able to stop book banning and banning certain things in our courses, in our education? What would you do as a leader to make things better and healthier for our people in our country so that we do get the right things that we need?
I'd go with social media education. When I was a kid, pornography was hard to find. My friends and I had to dumpster dive outside of fraternity houses in case a frat boy had thrown out his issues of Playboy
I never
magazine.
thought of that.
But now the internet is a cornucopia of porn, and you can't put those horses back in the barn. What you need is social media education about, look, this stuff is out there. It creates an unrealistic picture of what sex is. You need to teach people social media hygiene, how not to be twisted by the stuff they are going to run into, not just porn, but propaganda, bullying. People need tools to counter what they are going to inevitably run into.
Rick, but in real life, though, certain stores, children are not allowed in there. If they're under 18, they have to show ID to buy the materials. Should somebody be responsible if stuff is available on a child's cell phone? Who's responsible, the child, the parent, or the provider?
Yeah, but any child with any kind of skills can circumvent any kind of age bans on the internet.
So maybe children
Unless
under
that
18
child
shouldn't
is
have,
very.
maybe children under 18 shouldn't have access to phones then. Since it's inedible, they're going to have porn, you're saying.
I think so. I mean, you can, maybe a kid in a strongly, monitored household where the parents are paying a lot of attention to the kids' devices, they might be able to hold it off for a while. But what happens when that kid has a play date and goes to the house of
I think we're better off assuming they have access because they are
I think
going to
so
get
also. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a movie called Men, Women, and Children with Adam Sandler. It didn't do well at the box office, but it's about how a pornographied culture makes everybody sad and crazy. And it's a comedy, but everybody in the movie is messed up because of what they've seen on the internet.
Well,
that's very important.
life,
People must-
art imitating life. I do think that there's something that we do need to talk about in terms of, the society is changing. The internet has changed these things, and people have access to all sorts of things that they didn't have. So controlling it at a state of public education is a fool's errand to begin with. And, but Lee brought up Mark Twain. Of course, Mark Twain was talking about a society that was in the past, and he was giving us an example of what that society was like and what people were like and what people talked like. And that's exactly what history is about. That's exactly what education is about. And this is when we can look at something and say, hey, look, that's not ideal. That's not the way I want to be. That's not the way the community I want to live with. And this is what raises people's consciousness. And to deprive them of that is an error. And the other thing that's going on in this country, not only is there a move towards autocracy, where we just decide for you what you can and cannot see, but there's also a movement towards theocracy. So that it's going to be our way of looking at the world and no one else's. And if you look at the world a different way, you're either going to hell or you don't belong in this country and you should go away. And, unity is not uniformity. We don't have to look alike. We don't have to talk alike. We don't have to dress alike. We have to be tolerant of one another. And if we teach tolerance at a young level and cooperation at a young level, this is part of our elementary school, problem solving together as a group instead of as individuals. This teaches tolerance of other people's points of view, because there's things that I haven't thought about that Jacoby has. And when Jacoby says that, I go, oh yeah. And, but when I'm just stuck by myself, not meeting to Jacoby's, I'm going to say, I figured this out. I know it best. And I'm going to try to impose it on you. That's not what it's about.
Exactly. Everything I guess, I mean, Rick started it off. Jim, you're still going down that path, and I'll even add a third on there. It's all about education. I mean, the more, as an analogy, we all, if we're walking down the street and say we're in a section where there's a bunch of buildings, we're all walking down the street and we come up and we see there's this alleyway. It's a dark alleyway. Does anybody want to walk down there? No, because we don't know what's down there. But if we do know what's down there and we know that it's not something to be scared of, we'll walk down there, no problem. It's the same way in life. It's the same way that we deal with people. So the more kids are exposed to, for example, there are families with two mothers. If that's in the library and kids are exposed to that, it's okay, because then that kid, when they grow older, are not going to abuse or condemn or treat those with two mothers or two fathers as aliens or as people that I need to abuse because they are different than me.
That's
So
less than.
education and understanding.
I think that's a jump. Just because someone's
It's not a
different-
jump.
No, just
Well,
because
let him
someone's
finish.
different, where does someone get the license to abuse or to harm or to hurt people just because they're different? Where's that psychology or that thinking come from?
That's in our
thinking comes
DNA.
from- yeah, when we are
I'm sorry?
afraid of something, when we are afraid
in
of
our
something,
DNA.
it goes into that. Yeah, it's in our DNA. And when
Is
we're
there a
afraid
DNA
of something,
to be hurtful towards people who are different?
Yeah,
when
the other.
yeah.
The other.
I
It's
wasn't
classic
taught that.
psychology.
yeah,
I never heard that before. I'm not
For
I'm not
example,
saying you didn't.
Lee,
I never heard to
in-
hate people who are different.
here's a
The other,
real
the
world
other tribe.
example.
We're afraid of them.
Yeah,
Going back
here's
to-
a real world example. A
It's in our
real
DNA,
world
it's
example
primitive.
that's going on today. Now, when the and we'll start off with how we're talking about immigrants coming across. When the immigrants are coming this way, do they point out anything about what they're searching for? Or are we otherizing them, trying to demonize them, saying, well, they're coming for our jobs, they're taking our jobs, they're bringing drugs, they're carrying across lines because they've got cantaloupes? Are we actually individualizing them, or are we humanizing these people, or are we trying to demonize them to a point that we're fearful of them?
You can do both at the same time.
I mean,
Yeah.
which one are we doing legitimately? Looking at
depends.
our news.
It depends why they're coming here. If they're coming here to bring fentanyl, I think we shouldn't be naive and say, you know what? They just want a better life.
Okay,
But they're
rather
coming
than
where
muddying
it's
the
family,
waters,
'cause they're
rather than
leaving-
muddying the waters, I'll do it a different way. We'll go back to the alleyway. Okay, say there's a dude at the end of the alleyway, and you don't know that guy. Oh, Lee disappeared.
Okay,
Yeah, well,
let me-
the more and more people are getting eaten.
yeah. I know. It's an
But yeah.
Internet Monday.
Yeah.
But I'll say this about what we're talking. One thing, I'll change the subject just slightly and say what drives me crazy about the left sometimes is this. Every word is triggering, so we need to watch our language to the point where we can't speak, because everything that we say could offend someone else. So we can. This is the opposite of banning. Or not the opposite. It's a way of banning. And I'm against banning, period. So, banning books is, it's a question of why are we even having to talk about it? It's absurd. This is what they do in autocratic regimes. They are the ones that ban it. We're a democracy. We don't do it. So, I don't understand it, but we're having to talk about it. And it's a real thing. We have to talk about it. But on the left, we also have this, you can't talk about certain subjects because they might be offensive. And, I think everything should be on the table. We should be able to talk about anything. And whether or not it triggers someone potentially has to be, you want to be compassionate. You want to be, careful with your language to a certain extent, of course. And we want to raise our consciousness about how some bad language of the past can be just thrown out, And I think that, as a society, we're better than we were. and we're far from perfect. But there is a push on the left to censor language, which I think should be discussed as well.
You can talk about anything if you talk about it with an understanding of what is potentially bad about what you're talking about. You can Twitter, before it got just wrecked by Musk, was a good place to see how people learn to talk about all the hot button triggering issues without being a jerk about it. As currently constituted, the government and media are ill-equipped to deal with all these issues. We got a bunch of old people in government who are just not up to speed on possible fixes to our current dilemma. And, media, 24-hour news, has terrible habits. So it becomes up to individual families to educate their kids and to form coalitions, real coalitions, to defend values.
I completely agree. It has gotten to a point where, and I think another problem, because having the way our world is now, information is coming at us so fast, and so many things are changing, so many societal norms are moving, and us as at even our age, it's tough for us to keep up. Lingo's different. What people want to see is different. What people feel about particular things are different. So trying to establish those early through education, exposing people to them early, so there isn't that, hey,
next, Ken.
What the heck is this? Scaring people. That helps.
Ken?
Can I ask, what idiot moron banned It Takes Tango book? I mean, come on. And Tango Makes Three or whatever. A real life story about two penguins who hatched an egg together and raised it. I mean, what idiot moron would first off ban a real story about nature? And I mean, why? I mean, I want to know who did that, because I want to get them out of office. I want them out of office.
Again, that is everything that we're talking about.
That is stupid.
The majority of books banned deal with LGBTQIA, that community, and the Black community.
Nature.
There's also women involved. But yes, it had you said two.
You know what? Dolphins are gay. Dolphins are gay. Most of nature has gay nature in it.
I mean, dolphins.
That's that wokeism. That's that gay
dolphins are very horny fish, mammals.
Yeah,
that's why there's a lot of
nature is gay. You know what? Most of our society from day one has probably been gay. They just hide it. It's control.
Hey, Achilles was gay.
The part that tickles me about the whole argument about, oh, well, you're showing it now, so you're going to turn people gay.
Yeah.
Well, homosexuality is natural. Homosexuality is natural. The pagan religion was about orgies and dudes having sex with dudes while they're on top of land on women and women having sex. That it's natural. It's part of nature. But having everything deal with, okay, well, we got to have Mickey and Minnie. Well, I bet you Mickey and Minnie didn't turn those homosexual individuals into heterosexual individuals. So how does it work where if you show Mickey and Mickey, now you're going to make kids gay? It doesn't work that way.
I'm afraid.
I think people have lost their intelligence, but I mean, come on, this beautiful book about two penguins, and I personally just want to know what idiot moron it was, so I can just make sure I can focus on them and get rid of them from our society leadership, because often that is stupid.
Often it's one lunatic with access to a school system who comes up with a list of 500 books that person hasn't even read. And if the school system has a one strike deal, that if one person, files a complaint, that book is gone until it can be until somebody can take a look at it, then those books are gone.
Well, it's amazing to me that we're talking about educating people. So, like, for example, nowadays, it didn't used to happen. It wasn't known about or talked about when I was a little kid in elementary school. But now people have 2 dads or 2 moms. And so, you educate them about that and they consider it part of the universe. And it's not something to be questioned or looked at it askance. And kids will be accepting. If not, if you ban it, and they don't know about it and they see it, then they start to tease kids, and kids can be merciless to one another. So then, you're subjecting these children of these people to abuse, and because of ignorance. And we have to stop ignorance. If we can just stop being ignorant, then things will get better.
And we know for a fact representation matters. So we know for a fact that, there are kids struggling with their identities and what they're trying to, they're struggling because they don't want to tell people that they like kids of the same sex, or because they know they're going to get picked on. But if they are accepted and found books to educate them and say, okay, well, it is okay for you to be you.
Right.
That is a powerful thing, because
That is very powerful.
From the African American community to women to
any minority, any crazy person like me.
Yeah, so
growing up, reading about somebody like me,
helpful.
Yeah.
And
what I don't get? They don't put down murderers and mass murderers and criminals. They put down people who love other people. They put this down. They make it. But again, Jim, I want to ask you something. When you say ignorance, to me, ignorance is when somebody doesn't know any better. These people know better. They have an agenda. So what would you call that?
Well,
that's not ignorance.
That's willful ignorance.
It's a political strategy.
Yeah.
And hatefulness.
That's not ignorance.
That's hatefulness.
But I love the fact that you give it that. But it's not.
I think they're exploiting people who are ignorant, who don't know any better.
They are.
So there are people at the top leading them, and they're more articulate, and so they follow them. The people who don't know any better are being led down this road of hatred, and that's what Trump defined to me. Is he was at the top of the country, leading the country down a road of hatred.
As you know, we've got high levels of income inequality in this country right now. What we're going to increasingly see is information inequality. That, like, if you read science fiction, a lot of science fiction set in the near future has Jesus land, which is the South, kind of separating itself from the rest of America, and information is less free in that area than it is in the rest of the U.S.
Well,
so I want to add something. If you wanted to consider a conspiracy theory that, when COVID hit, that's when they kind of gave us this landslide divide of income, when they started giving all of this rich, wealthy people the PPP loans that they don't have to pay back. And they made the poor people even more poor and more poor. Here's $1,700 check, send me a donation because I gave you $1,700, Trump. But in the same instance, they're giving the rich people bigger and more money, of which they eventually voted they did not have to pay back. And that's where the continental divide has begun now. Is that started then during the Trump period. Now, how great and wonderful it will be for him to walk right back into his strategy to take over the world. When, we have this huge divide, not just divide in finance, but also divide in the way we feel about each other, the way that we work together. We're imploding, and we're not getting better.
I will say that the divide and all that happened before Trump. I will say that Trump exacerbated that divide.
I agree with that.
Because
to give all that money with no payback, that's huge.
But it wasn't. Trump was made possible, before
Trump
this was
Trump
going on.
is a symptom and not the cause. There's just so much that trickle down economics was the big thing that Nixon began. That was another one of the things that he
Reaganomics, voodoo
economics, and it got pushed big time by Reagan and the GOP, and that was
River Up. It's river up, baby. I've been telling our buddy David K. Johnson, it ain't trickle down. It is river up, right back into their pockets.
But it's not. The problem is we are not trying to truly educate our. Getting back to the electorate, we're not educating our electorate. The easy thing is, and this is why we don't have the best and the brightest. It's because it's easier to sell a bumper sticker than it is to sell a book.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to a book author, that hurt. and I must say that also the you think about what's going on in Russia right now. What do the Russian people think about the war in Ukraine? They think that the Ukraine's Nazis and that it's a good thing that they're fighting them. Why? Because the Russian media tells them that over and over, and they have no other source of information. The ones that do know better have run away because they do have other sources of information. So what
There's
the Russian media being able to tell you the truth? And how the
I've actually met Russians who said, I agree with you. I've actually met Russians here in the U.S. who have said that, that this was necessary. So, who am I to argue with them? I don't want a gun to be pulled out and shot me. So
please don't have that happen, Kim. We've got to keep positivity going. And
I was just going to say this real quick, Mark. The Arab Spring was part of the information, and that's why the uprising happened. China suppresses information about its country. And there is, matter of fact, they're doing that over a video game just recently. They do that in a bunch of video games. North Korea is all about information suppression and propagating how, Kim Jong-un was a gift from God. That's the propaganda that they push out, and their people believe that until they get
working hand in hand with information suppression is the fire hose of propaganda model.
Yep.
When you flood people with so much misinformation that they have no chance of finding out that it's BS.
Yep.
Well, I want to add something positive before we wrap today.
Okay.
Just something really way cool about good news is this month is the 2 supermoons. Okay, guys? 2. All right. So make sure you go out August 1st, starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then going on into late evening, you'll be able to see this great, wonderful supernova moon. And then August 30th, the second moon, which is the blue moon. This doesn't happen very often, but hey, guys, go out and enjoy some nature. Hopefully they won't ban our show for mentioning, something great about nature, about 2 super moons in 1 month. God forbid it might be,
We've definitely mentioned nature several times.
Kim,
Actually did that
if you don't want to listen to the nature, there's Zap Mama who released a song called Supermoon, and it's actually a great song. She plays the guitar if you're big into the guitar.
And August 12th is actually going to be a meteorite shower. I know that Dick's in Raleigh is doing a watch thing where you can literally go out there and lay in the stars. And I think they're actually supplying telescopes for those that want to go into that space. I actually won't be there because I think that same day we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of hip hop, because hip hop has also been going on for 50 years. And some people want to ban elements of hip hop and all in that space to tie the stories together.
And the U.S. Chess Open is going on in Michigan right now in Grand Rapids.
What's going on in Grand Rapids?
The U.S. Chess Open is going on in Grand Rapids right now. So
the U.S. Open and Grand Open. And we've also got the Women's World Cup and all in that space. So hopefully folks will be writing and checking that out. By the way, one of the host countries lost. So Australia and New Zealand were the host countries, and New Zealand has already been ousted. So New Zealand is ousted out of the tournament and all that space, even though they are one of the hosts. Australia, I think, is still in it. U.S. is still in it. I think they have a game coming up this week and
tomorrow.
They are favored to win that game and go into Portugal the next round and all in that space. And to Rick's point, and I know we're wrapping up, if we ban books and all of that line, well, what are we going to do? Because we can't ban the telephone and all of the ways that people get all of this information. So if you ban the book, are you also going to ban the telephone? And as somebody said earlier on this show, you're not going to let 18-year-olds get telephones and computers? Good luck with that.
I got an idea. Let's ban politicians.
And we're going to abandon the show.
Ban politicians.
All right. Bye-bye.